Hi, Wednesday evening. I tried to come into the garage tonight with almost no idea of what I wanted to say. I wanted to see sort of what randomness we could come up with. So I've got a whole bunch of stuff here, and it was not hard at all to come up with something different. So I think we've got some interesting stuff. And I'm actually thinking of changing this view. You know, there's a whole lot more to see here. There's so many models that we could be seeing in the background rather than the somewhat boring backgrounds. One day when I get organized enough to actually change the arrangement here, we'll have a more interesting backdrop. I can change the table position to another side. Now, amongst all of the stuff that's lying here, I've got things that I walk over day after day after day. An old squashed box, and not squash damaged, just squashed. That is such a gem. I've just taken it out. I do love the Morris quad. I love it in both scales, but I've got this little 1/72, and that should not be lying on the ground in a pile of models there. I will make a very nice model out of that. I don't have tons of 1/72 left because I got rid of a bunch at a stage. Probably shouldn't have. Most of them this Esky series. Really, really nice small armor and soft skins that Esky made. They are getting more and more difficult to pick up. And they are of the first 1/72 armored vehicles that I did. So I've just dug that one off the floor. That'll be good. Oh, and I dug this one off the floor. You know, this is sort of one step short of never ever being built. And I still don't really know. Now, see that MPM? I'm not a fan of MPM. I've got a few, probably 4 in total maybe. That is an unusual topic. I'm not going to call that thing pretty, but somewhat historic, I guess, and a little bit different. You know, maybe you get used to building good looking stuff so often that when something like this comes along, it is a bit weird to take up a project like that. So that is this, which I have de-sprued and bagged to a degree, and it does have photo etch. Not good quality. I'm not going to call this good quality whatsoever. Of the lowest quality that I have in anything. But I might actually try and do a slap together of that. I sort of almost like this thing in its unusualness, but I'm not going to pretend that I think it's a pretty helicopter whatsoever. So we've got that weird thing that's floating around. I've got a number of submarines, and while these are not on the floor and I sort of regard them quite highly, this is really, really tiny. These 2 Japanese submarines. These 2, and this one, which is probably the more appealing one of all of them. But I'm a little bit lost as to what to do with these. I've built one submarine before. I put it in the shelf and it sort of just disappears. I didn't even really paint it that well or anything. It just disappears, and I'm a bit lost as to what to do with them. I mean, a diorama setting, but it's almost like they actually belong next to a destroyer and next to a battleship to really have any significance. Nice little Tamiya models. So, you know, I'll keep them for one day when I actually get to the ships a little bit more. I really like these Tamiya ships, the destroyers, the battleships. they're a lot more work, lots and lots of little small parts, which I'm not going to pretend is easy. I do find that quite challenging. Oh, and I dug this off the floor as well. This just came from somebody that gave away a bunch of models. It's I mean, I'm sure you've all seen this thing in pictures. Can't remember the name of it. Was this a Northrop X something? One of the flying wings, and I think you've seen that picture where they put these 3 flying wings together and they sort of match up on the leading edges, because I think they're each 120 degrees. So together they make 360. I think that's what this... Correct me if I'm wrong. So this has got the 2 props there which have broken off. Probably again for a diorama or a museum setting, and I have been pondering building a hanger, but I don't know if that would look nice hanging up in it. It's something weird that's hanging around here. I also bought myself a number of these HO scale buildings. Now this particular one, I quite like the idea. Was this the showroom? This is not the showroom. This is the furniture store. But I quite liked the idea of doing a little diorama where inside there you actually take the time to build almost a little model station, a model club meeting inside there. That would be quite a bit of work, and I have never done that. A model building. Or a little restaurant shop or whatever. I doubt I would do it as a furniture shop, but a nice little setting for something. And I always have these plans of dioramas. And then, of course, a number of these slightly more conventional ones. But I always think of them in terms of how could I fit this in with an aeroplane, with a small setting, with a bit of railway line, but not actually any rolling stock, into a small board. Not very big at all. For storage purposes, for space purposes. But very, very nice little buildings. These were not expensive at all. I think, at best this was $20, possibly even less for the smaller ones. A nice little water tower for an airfield setting or something. I'll always change the intended use to something a little bit more obscure. And one of my all-time favorites, this Wessex, which is de-sprued and in this bag. I won't get tired of building Wessexes, even though I haven't built that many, but I just love this helicopter. A very, very good looking helicopter. And then I just found something that we could use on the Walrus. Those are from F117, I think, Nighthawk. Not sure what that's from, but that looks like it could be interesting on that Walrus. And then to end with, I'm going to tell you again a little bit of the history of my modeling, which is it's quite interesting, and it was broken up into quite significant stages. Started building in 1974, all on my own. No motivation or nudging from my folks or family or anything. Although, to the best of my memory, I had observed my dad building one model once, or he had a model. I can't really remember him actually sitting there with glue building it, a model car. Then when I was 6 years old, I just went and bought models on my own, one every 2 months or who knows. From 1974 till 1980, that's all I was doing was building, no painting, no nothing, and the number of tools that I had hardly increased at all. For the first number of years there was nothing other than glue, absolutely nothing. Now imagine building a model where you're just breaking off the pieces from the sprue carefully and building your model, and that's, you know, whatever misalignments or little bits of flash or anything was stopping things from getting together, you just build the model best that you can. By 1977, 78, 79, I was quite stabilizing and not messing much glue. 78, 79, not bad at all. And I would say by the end of 1979, for a kid's unpainted model, they were not looking bad. 1980, 81, 82, 83, 84 began the painting process. Brush painting, so that was a different stage again, only brush painting. 80 and 81, very few paints, I mean 3 colors. 82, 83, a few more colors, 5 to 10 colors. 84, 85, hardly, I don't think it even reached 20 colors. There wasn't a whole lot of attempt to get much accuracy with coloration. It was just getting familiar with using paints, which I think was a very handy period as well. So yes, the models were looking better and better, but far from, the current level that you'd expect. Then my Air Force years and things slowed down a lot. So the number of models in the second half of the 80s was quite a lot less than in the first half of the 80s. I can't remember how many actually. Not a couple a year at best, 2 or 3 or 4 a year. I can't remember. Then 1990 and the start of this thinking about airbrushing. 1992 was my first airbrushed model, and then things started improving slowly at a fair pace. And then you started learning, the various techniques of vastly improving your decals and varnish coatings and things like that. So yeah, very interesting phases, and I look very favorably upon the build years with no paint. They were the years of most enjoyment, I would say, because as soon as you brought on the requirements to be a little bit more perfectionistic, and possibly you've painted and now you need to let it aside to dry for a while, sort of slowed down the process. I mean, keep in mind, I was building a model in not even in an afternoon, in under 2 hours. Basically any of the aircraft models under 2 hours, no painting, which is quite possible, but as a kid, you just tend to get it done so much faster because you're not fussing over anything. You don't even know you were supposed to fuss over that. I didn't know I was supposed to use sandpaper. At some point, a little nail clipper became the first suggestion. Why don't you use this to clip off the parts? Okay, but now I needed to get a nail clipper from somebody. And then the next, I don't think sandpaper came in till right close to 1980. Now that's a very interesting lot of building years with 0 tools or 1 tool. It's quite amazing. A nail file, that's right. A nail file came in just before the sandpaper. And then with the painting came sort of this use of turpentine and thinners, starting to learn about that, which I found quite interesting as well. But the paints were so expensive by comparison. It was like, well, if you were going to get paints, you weren't going to get your model, and I'd always choose a model over paints. That's sort of part of the reasoning of why that happened. The paints were available. I could have done so, but that means you weren't going to get a model that month. And then, of course, 2000 to now was the years of perfection, where really, I should add, there was a different phase where I was modeling for competitions. That was the highly sort of perfection part of it. Then once I'd taken part in so many competitions, that got a little bit boring after a while, and I decided just, I'm happy to just model for myself, just enjoy it and do weird and wonderful things, which is the phase that I'm in now, ranging from unpainted quick builds, more perfectionistic but still quick build, up to the full perfection models, which I differentiate into two categories. Like, for instance, the Phantoms, I'm trying to do them really, really well, but I'm doing nothing extra. And then, for instance, the Harvard series, where I will be doing a huge amount on them, on some of them, not all of them. How much do I enjoy my modeling now? I actually enjoy it hugely, because I've let myself go from a lot of the stress of having to achieve a certain thing. Now, while certain models still require you to, like the Phantoms now, they're a little bit of a burden in that they still require me to go and do a lot of masking for the color schemes. Be very careful with that and plan the layers very well so that you don't damage anything that you've already done. But it's a huge reward in those very interesting color schemes. And then you have the slightly less fancy color schemes. There might be war color schemes, but they're still very good looking in that the weathering finishes really make them stand out. So that's some of the models that I've held up for you. The Hellcat, the Kingfisher, can't remember even all of them. And then some of them I do in a very clean finish, nice and shiny. Not as much as the Phantom, I mean, reasonable. The Phantoms are sort of getting extra treatment to look absolutely top-notch. So yeah, tell me in the comments, tell me about your build phases, your periods of history with model building. The thing that I'm neglecting a little bit at the moment is the stuff outside of the appealing stuff. Aeroplanes is easy and appealing, and I'm neglecting ships. I'm definitely neglecting ships. I'm doing my motorbikes, they're slow. I am paying attention to cars, but not as much as I should. But the ships are definitely getting neglected. Armor I really enjoy. I just happen to not be doing a 1/35th armor at the moment, armor piece. I guess one will come somewhat soon. Okay, add all your comments, and that's it for this evening. Happy modeling.